What's up, YouTube? I wanted to make a little video for my son. He's got him a little YouTube channel going, and thought I'd make this for him in case he wants to put it on there. This is a Manco Intruder II go-kart. These were built in the mid-90s, somewhere around 93, 94, 95, somewhere in that time frame. And then Manco went out of business. I found this one driving down the road. We were actually heading out of town down to Arkansas, and I spotted it at a gas station, parking lot, garage sale. And the wife and kids wanted to drink for the trip, so whipped in there, let them run inside, and I walked over and took a look at this. And the guy had 350 on it. And I talked to him a little bit about it. Wasn't running at the time, but I told him what we were doing, heading out of town. And he said he'd be out there the next day, so I said I'll stop in and see if you still got it. I didn't expect it to be there, because even at 350, not running, it was worth 350 without a motor on it, even if the motor didn't. So anyways, we ran down to Arkansas, did our thing, came back the next day, and I snuck off. Went down to the gas station, lo and behold, it was still there. So I snagged it up. I talked the guy down to 250. So I drug it home. At the time, it had the stock motor, the factory motor on it. This 7-horse Subaru Robin EX21. Looked pretty rough. It's cleaned up now compared to what it looked like. It was pretty nasty. Still a little bit nasty. We tinkered with it, or I tinkered with it. Pulled the carburetor off, cleaned it up, rebuilt it. Actually, I found a rebuild kit for it. Rebuilt it, got it to run, and I've got a video that will link or include somehow from the first start on that when we got it back. And did a little tinkering with it here and there, worked on the brakes, and got it running, and they were able to ride it. I actually had to rebuild the old Comet 30 series torque converter. With these bigger tires, you can't run a standard little centrifugal clutch, you just burn them up. So this 30 series torque converter will stand up to the larger tires for the off-road cart. So I learned how to, I'd never done that before. Got on the Google tubes, learned how to rebuild that, clean it up, get it functional. I had to order some parts for it, and got it functioning. The brakes, I don't know if you can see down here, in there, this right there, down there, that part, little caliper style brake as opposed to the old band brakes. That was froze up. Again, Google Tube is your friend. Got on there, learned how to rebuild it, found a place to order parts for this old cart, got the brakes, I thought, functioning. So got it rolling enough to where he could ride it. That was 3 years ago-ish, maybe 4, something like that. And they rode it around. Well, the brakes kept failing on it. They could ride it a few laps, and they'd run out of brakes. And I went through the adjustment process multiple times, trying to figure that out. Finally, what I figured out, after getting frustrated that I couldn't get the brakes to last, I found this place here, Go Power Sports, a place down out of Texas. And I called them up. It turned out they at one time were the #1 retailer for Manco carts, and the lead one of the technicians there was a former lead technician for Manco. And Turned out to be a pretty good source to get parts for these old carts, because when Manco went out of business, Go Power Sports, they told me, bought up all excess inventory of parts for this cart and all Manco carts. And so good supply, good source for what I needed. Anyways, the lead tech, he talked to me several things, and he finally asked me, he said, what does a rotor look like? I said, well, it's pretty rusted up, you know. He said, there's your problem. Iron oxide, rust, is a harder material than the material the brake shoes are made out of. So the rust was just eating the brake shoes up. So I ordered a new rotor. Got that installed. Actually, we didn't worry about that right then. He rotored a couple times and then parked it for the winter. And then the next spring, I got tied up doing some stuff, working on a master's degree, stuff like that, that pulled me away from my little hobbies for a while. So it sat outside for a year or more, a couple of years, maybe. And of course, that's not good. Then I built my new dad shop a little over a year ago. Rolled it in here, and this summer I finally got a chance to tear into it, do some work to it. So I ordered the new brake rotor for it, ordered new bearings for the axle. This was an entire learning process for me. I'd never torn into one of these, so it was a follow your nose kind of thing. Tore into it, tore it apart, ordered all new bearings for the axle, got that put back together, got the brakes put back together, adjusted them. Ended up having to buy a new chain for it because the old chain pretty knotted up. See if I can get here to where this will, you can see some locked up kinks in it right there, right there, right there, really right there. I don't know how it gets locked up like that when it's installed, but it was. So we ordered a new chain for it, put a new chain on it. Here in just the last couple of weeks, I've been working on it. Tore the motor apart again, cleaned the carburetor. The bowl in the carburetor was just absolutely pitted like nothing I've ever seen before. So I thought, well, let's just order a new carb for it. New carburetor for that thing, an OEM carburetor if you can find it, is well over $100. There's some Chinese knockoffs that are half that, $60, maybe, and some even less. And I read all of the reviews on those, and nobody had anything good to say about the Chinese knockoff carbs. I got to looking. Harbor Freight have these Predator motors on sale for $99. So we just got a whole, and the gas tank on that one had a pinhole leak in it. So it was just more cost effective to put a new motor on it, new engine. So we did. Got everything all set up. The plastics surrounding that, the upper cover and that lower cover under there, I had ordered those back when we first got the cart, and I found Go Power Sports. They had that set of plastics. The ones that were on it were just shredded. And being that this is an off-road cart and where my boy's going to ride it at out in the country, I'm sure that'll just eventually shred again. When it does, we'll let it go. That lower piece anyways probably will. The upper piece should be fine. When the lower piece shreds, we'll just pull it off and go with it. So, a couple of final pieces have been tacking around with it. The throttle cable it sat outside so long, the throttle cable had filled with water and rusted. So just today I got a new throttle cable in. Got that installed, working like a top. Missing the seat. I'll show you why. When I got it, it had this seat on it, which was, given its age and the amount of time it's been sitting outside, was in good shape. Everything was complete, no rips, no tears. It was old and dirty, a little worse for wear for the weather. Hello, Bear. That's our cat. Shop cat. And right about time, my boys had been wanting a dog, but we don't do inside pets. So I told them as soon as I got my shop built, we'd get a dog and he could live in the shop. Archer, where are you? He's out running around somewhere, so he's usually laying around. There he is. Say hello, Archer. Say hello. Are you missing your boys? They're off to camp this week, so I'm trying to get this wrapped up before they get home on Friday. Archer ate that bottom seat there. I mean, he literally ate it, destroyed it, ripped it apart. There was nothing wrong with it other than a little bit of age, but he shredded that, just tore it apart one day. So, as it turns out, you can get all kinds of aftermarket seats for these, but you see how the back is sculpted on here for each rider? The bottom was the same way. Kind of little bolsters in there to help the rider not slide around on the seat. I wanted something like that, so I was thinking I would have it recovered, resculpted. But I got to looking at Go Power Sports, and they have the original seats for this. Only about a dozen of them left, and then they're gone forever. So tomorrow I order the new seat for it, and so all that I have left for it to do to put them on the road or in the yard, connect that kill wire right there. Got to tie it into the kill switch on there, and do a little bit more break-in process. There is a break-in process to these motors. You really don't want to just slap them on and run them, because these are cast aluminum blocks, and they're not highly refined. You can't expect that for 99 bucks for this motor, even at full price if you paid 129 bucks for it. So when you first start that up, fill it with oil and start it up and run it, you'll let it get up to temp, let it run for about 10 minutes, shut it off, and then drain it and look in your oil. You'll see a bunch of little fine little metal pieces. That's the rough casting edges coming loose, coming off, and everything. You do not want to run that through your motor. That's not good. Little metal pieces, even as small as they are. Look, they're smaller than glitter, but they're enough if you shine your flashlight down in your drain pan whenever you drain the oil, you can see those little metal pieces. So there's a break-in process to clean that out. So I still got to do that a little bit. Got the throttle cable connected today. It's working great. Hooked the kill switch up. After it's out of its 90-day warranty, because there's a kill, let me back up, there's a kill switch right there on the steering wheel, and I want them to be able to utilize that. There's a kill switch that comes on the motor, that red switch there. But you can tie the one on the steering wheel into that, so if he's in an emergency, he loses brakes for some reason or whatever, he can just hit that kill switch and shut the engine off. So got to hook the kill switch into the one on the motor, and then you see that bundle of wires there going into the side of the motor there. That is a low oil sensor, and if it senses for some reason low or no oil, it will kill the motor. After the 90-day warranty is the problem with these motors are often meant to be, I think the design is a stationary thing, like on an air compressor or a pressure washer, something that sits still and doesn't rock side to side. But on a go-kart, you're up and down and around, turning left and right, and that oil is sloshing around inside the crankcase. So when you take a left turn in these things, because the switch is on the left side of the motor, the sensor. So when you make a left turn, or I guess it'd be a right turn, whatever. Yeah, right turn, and that motor sloshes to the opposite side of the motor. It uncovers that oil pressure or oil sensor and shuts the motor down, thinking it doesn't have enough oil in it. So I don't want to do anything like that to we're out of the 90-day warranty, just in case something happens. But then we'll disconnect that, and he'll be able to ride over the hills. We live in pretty hilly terrain, and out where he's going to be riding at, friends, family of ours have few hundred acres, cattle country, but it's also Ozark Mountain country, so it's hilly. He'll be sure to be sloshing oil around in there, and every time he makes a turn to the right, he'll have to get off and start it back up. At any rate, let's fire this thing up. It is warm. This is not a cold start. I just did another break-in cycle on it where I fired it up and ran it. First couple times, one guy's procedure that I found online, he recommends firing it up stationary and letting it run for 10 minutes, shutting it off, drain the oil, put all new oil back in. It's only half a quart, so it's not like you're spending a ton of money. Put all new oil back in, fire it up, run it another 10 minutes, drain it. Do that 2-3 times till you see the metal particles start to diminish. And then do it under load and extend your run time 15-20 minutes. So I just did that prior to getting the axle back on and the wheels and the torque converter hooked up. I was just running it, just mounted to the frame, no load whatsoever. Didn't even have anything on the output shaft there. So I just finished up probably the 4th break-in cycle on it after we put the axle on, put the tires on, put the chain on, connected the torque converter. And so we've got a little bit of a load on it. And so that allows you, helps your rings to start seating and break up more of that, get rid of more of that metal castings there. Casting, filings, dust, particles, whatever you want to call it. I do have a little bit of a problem. You see the oil seeping? You see the oil stain around there? That is coming from that drain plug right there. It's leaking for some reason. It's got a seal on it, and I thought I had it relatively tight. I'm fairly positive I did not cross thread that putting it in. I was extremely careful of that. So I got to figure that out. I'm sure it's something simple. But let's fire it up and let you see what we got so far. Even when they're warm, you got to choke this little Predator engine. So we got it choked. Fuel is on. I'm going to turn the switch on. Make sure there are no cats, animals, humans, or otherwise in the way of the wheels. And they're pretty easy starting. I say that. Oh, did I? Let's see. There we go. See, I've got it up on the jack stand because it will bend those tires a little bit, but I can come over here. What? Twist on your belt. Got the throttle cable hooked up to the gas pedal. So there it is. All I have left to do is get the new seat ordered, get that installed, hook up a kill switch, and she's ready to go. Now, later on, this is a 5.5 horse motor that's on it. No, 6.5. 6.5. The original motor was a 7 horse. But what I've learned, these motors have a better mid-range on it. They're much more torquey than the original motor. The original motor had a decent top end on it. These have an equivalent top end and a better mid-range. Now, once it's out of warranty, there's some mods we can do to help hop this motor up a little bit. Top speed on it right now is supposed to be 30 to 35. That's what it was with the original motor, and I'm assuming it'll be similar to that with this motor. My boy's 12. He's a decent sized kid. Of course, he gets that from his dad, unfortunately. So it'll run him around somewhere between 25 and 35. We'll see if we can clock it. At any rate, there's some performance mods you can do to this motor depending on how wild you want to get. Stage 1 performance is essentially helping the motor breathe better. You take off, remove this breather, and there's a different type of breather that goes on that. There's a spacer that goes between the carburetor and the block, and then a more free-flowing breather element that goes on it, and you lose this entire piece right here, and your breather sticks out here, and then so that helps it breathe in more air. And if it's breathing more air in, it needs to breathe out, or exhale, we'll say, more air. So you take off this restrictive stock exhaust, and there's a performance header pipe that you attach in place of it. Looks like a little stinger, kind of like off an old Volkswagen Bug, old school Bug. Little stinger pipe that comes out that increases the engine's ability to move air through it. Essentially, that's what a gas engine is an air pump. The more it can bring air in and evacuate spent air, burn exhaust, or exhaust fumes, the better it's going to breathe, the better it's going to perform. Now, of course, if you're changing the airflow through it, then you have to make some changes in the carburetor to allow it to feed enough fuel for the increased airflow. So there's a new jet that goes in the carburetor. So that's it. Essentially, it's pretty easy. 10-15 minute install. Anybody with basic tools can do it. And then later on, there's a stage 2 performance kit. The stage 1 kit is like $60, maybe a bump more. The stage 2 is a little more expensive and a little more involved. You actually open the motor up. At that point, we'll remove the governor, factory governor on it, remove that oil sensor, that internal oil sensor, plug those holes. You put a billet crank in it, a new cam, forget what else. Oh, and a billet flywheel that's lighter, helps it perform better, less rolling resistance inside the motor. And I've seen videos where guys have bumped these from 6.5 order or horsepower to somewhere in the order of 18 to 20. Some guys are claiming, so one guy that claimed 28 horsepower. I don't know how he measured that. I don't know too many people putting a go-kart on a dyno, but whatever. You know, as my boy gets bigger, we can put a bigger motor, and you hop this motor up, have a little fun with it, you know. I like to tinker, so I've got the shop here to tinker. See, I've got a few different projects. Old Yamaha Blaster that my sister bought several years ago when she was still a single girl, and then she started a family and priorities changed, and so I've had that for several years. It's seen better days. I'm going to eventually, probably next summer, tear into that and bring it back to life. Do a mild restoration on it, nothing crazy, but that's a video for another time. So there it is. I think my son's going to have a lot of fun. I think my wife's going to have a lot of fun with it. She rode it some whenever it was running previously. We'll get those videos in there as well. And there it is. I'm pretty proud of my tinkering here. As a kid, I learned to take small engines like that apart, put them back together. Never learned how to make one run. But I learned to take them apart, see what made them work. And that has stayed with me over the years. And so now that I've got time to tinker and have a little fun with it, it's paying off for me. So pretty proud of it. Glad to see it come together. We'll get Brody's reaction, and Jet. I've got two boys. We'll get their reaction. Some video of them riding it. we'll add that along later on. Hey, thanks for watching. Sorry it's a little bit long, but there it is, the Manco Intruder II rebuild, almost complete. Have a good one.